10 years ago, between the prom music and glitter confetti, I saw red and blue lights reflecting off my silk dress. My best friend dialed 911 in seconds while I learned how to survive through the entire decade that followed. Tonight is also a prom, but for adults, and I'm the one setting the stage. When the lights sweep across the room again, he won't understand they're not the fire department but handcuffs with his name on them. Waiting. My name is Maya Caldwell, and I've spent 10 years preparing for this moment. The Lake Fall Pavilion's ballroom shimmers with string lights and silver balloons, just like every prom fantasy should. Bass from the live band pulses through the marble floor, up through my heels, matching the rhythm of my 18-year-old heartbeat that I can still feel underneath the professional calm I've cultivated as an EMT. Tonight's charity gala theme, A Second Chance Prom, feels like the universe's twisted sense of humor, or maybe its gift to me. I adjust the clutch under my arm, feeling the cold metal of the recording device hidden inside. Legal in Ohio, as long as one party consents. And I consent to everything that's about to happen. Maya, you made it. Tess Holloway's voice cuts through the music. My best friend since sophomore year, now a freelance PR specialist who helped orchestrate tonight's attendance list. She air kisses my cheek, her breath warm with champagne, but her eyes are sharp and sober. He's by the silent auction table, holding court like he owns the place. Dale Mercer. Even thinking his name makes my fingers instinctively check the tiny camera pinned to my dress like a vintage brooch. He does own part of this place. In a way, Mercer & Sons renovation donated the marble restoration last year. Another tax write-off, another newspaper photo op, another layer of respectability painted over the rot. You sure about this, Jonas Pike? My companion tonight touches my elbow gently. He's seen enough in Horizon Medical's ER to recognize the look of someone about to walk into danger. But he doesn't know this isn't reckless. This is surgical. I'm sure. I scan the room, noting exits, security cameras. The off-duty officer, Kara Whitfield, nursing a club soda by the coat check. Everyone in position, just like we rehearsed. The band shifts to a slower song, something contemporary trying to sound nostalgic. Couples drift toward the dance floor, and there he is. Dale Mercer, 53 now, silver threading through the same broad shoulders that once filled our kitchen doorway. He's laughing at something the mayor's wife said, his hand gesturing with a champagne flute, his wedding ring catching the light. My mother isn't here. She never comes to his public events anymore, just sits at home in the house he bought her, in the life he crafted for her. In the cage she's convinced herself is protection. Ladies and gentlemen, the DJ's voice booms. In about 30 minutes, we'll be announcing the winner of our silent auction grand prize, a complete home renovation, courtesy of tonight's platinum sponsor, Mercer & Sons. Applause ripples through the crowd. Dale raises his glass, that practiced humble smile spreading across his face. The same smile he wore when he first came to fix our leaking roof. Tools in hand and salvation in his promises. I touch the clutch again, then pull out my phone. The anonymous email account is ready. The message I sent him yesterday sitting in the sent folder. Grateful parent here. My daughter's been difficult lately, reminds me of someone you helped years ago. Would love your advice. Can we talk privately tonight? His response came within an hour. Always happy to help. Find me at the event. The string lights blur for a second, and I'm 18 again, feeling my satin dress tear against the kitchen counter, seeing my mother frozen in the doorway, hearing Tessa's panicked voice on the phone with dispatch. But I'm not 18 anymore. I'm 28, trained to save lives and, tonight, trained to end his careful construction of lies. When the lights sweep again, I murmur to Jonas, who squeezes my hand once before letting go. Everything changes. I start walking toward the silent auction table, each step measured, each breath controlled. The recording device sits warm against my ribs now, ready to capture every word in the soundproof back room where donors go to settle large bids, where privacy is guaranteed, where Dale Mercer is about to remember that some sins don't stay buried and some girls don't stay scared. The disco ball spins lazily overhead, throwing fractured light across the room like broken glass, like promise, like redemption shaped in careful, legal revenge. Maple Ridge, Ohio, was the kind of town where everyone knew your father's truck by its engine knock. Mine was a 1992 Ford Ranger, powder blue with rust eating the wheel wells, and it smelled like aviation oil mixed with peppermint gum. Dad worked at Crown Aero, maintaining private planes for rich folks who flew in from Cleveland. His hands were always stained with grease that no amount of lava soap could remove. But they were gentle when he taught me to tie fishing lures at Lake Erie. "Maya bird," he'd say, watching my small fingers work the line. "Patience makes the difference between catching dinner and telling stories." I was 12 when the ice storm hit Interstate 90. They said Dad's truck fishtailed trying to avoid a jackknifed semi. They said it was instant. They said a lot of things that were supposed to make it easier, but all I remember is Mom standing in our doorway at 2:15 still in her teaching clothes, forgetting how to breathe. Elaine Caldwell had been Maple Ridge Elementary's favorite fourth-grade teacher. She made volcanoes out of baking soda, read voices for every character, kept graham crackers in her desk for kids who forgot lunch money. But grief rewired her circuits. She quit teaching before the school year ended, the house filled with unopened mail electric bills, mortgage notices, sympathy cards that became accusations. I was 14 when Dale Mercer's van pulled into our driveway. The roof had been leaking since spring, water staining my bedroom ceiling in patterns that looked like storm clouds. Mom had called 6 contractors. Dale was the only one who'd come out on a Saturday without demanding cash up front. "Mrs. Caldwell," he said, standing in our doorway with a clipboard and that smile. "Nobody should have to put buckets in their bedroom." He was handsome in that suburban contractor way, broad shoulders, clean flannel, boots without too much wear. He fixed the roof that day, refused payment, said he knew about our situation, said the word situation like it was delicate glass he didn't want to break. He started showing up every weekend, fixed the porch rail, replaced the water heater, patched the drywall. Mom started smiling again, started cooking real dinners instead of microwave mac and cheese. The neighbors called him a godsend. Mrs. Patterson from across the street actually used that word godsend when she saw him mowing our lawn in July heat. By the time school started, he was driving us to grocery stores, sitting at our dinner table, making Mom laugh at jokes that weren't quite funny. His truck replaced Dad's in the driveway. His voice filled spaces that used to hold fishing stories and engine knock. "You're lucky," he told me once, helping with algebra homework Mom used to handle, to have someone who cares enough to stick around. The controlling started small. Suggestions about Mom's clothes. "That dress might be too young for you." Elaine. Comments about my friends. "That Tess girl seems like trouble." Rules that appeared overnight. Bedroom doors stay open. No phone calls after 8 p.m. Permission needed for after-school activities. Mom adapted like she was learning a new language. Stopped wearing lipstick. Stopped seeing her teacher friends. Started checking with Dale before making any decision. Even buying groceries. "Dale likes pot roast on Sundays," she'd say, as if we'd always eaten pot roast on Sundays, as if Dad hadn't been allergic to beef. I fought back in small ways. Closed my door anyway. Snuck phone calls with Tess from the bathroom with the fan running. Joined drama club without asking. Each rebellion met with Dale's disappointment, never anger. Not at first. Just sighs and head shakes and conversations with Mom behind their bedroom door that left her eyes red and apologetic. "He's trying, Maya," she'd whisper, straightening my collar before school. "We need to try too." The first time he grabbed my wrist was over college brochures. Ohio State had sent materials about their pre-med program. He found them in my backpack, spread them across the kitchen table like evidence. "Planning to leave your mother." His fingers pressed into the same spot where I'd take pulses years later. "After everything we've done for you." Mom stood by the sink, washing the same plate over and over, water so hot I could see steam rising. That night, I heard him in their room. "She's got too much of her father in her. We need to watch that." The North Ridge High Gymnasium transformed into something magical that May-night disco balls throwing stars across the walls, blue and silver streamers twisted like DNA strands, tables draped in white cloth that made our small Ohio town feel like somewhere else entirely. My dress was seafoam satin, a thrift store find that Tess had altered in her basement, taking in the waist and adding tiny pearls along the neckline. "You look like a mermaid," Tess said, pinning a white corsage to my wrist in the bathroom. Her boyfriend Mark waited outside, adjusting his rented tux. "And I put my phone in your clutch. Speed dial 2 if you need me. Just press it twice to unlock." She knew. Everyone in our circle knew, but nobody said it outright. The way Dale checked my outfit 3 times before I left. The curfew of 11 p.m., when everyone else had until 1 a.m. The promise I'd had to make about no funny business, while Mom stood behind him, nodding like a marionette. I danced 3 songs. 3 perfect songs where I felt 18 and normal and free. The DJ played that year's pop hits and we screamed the lyrics, throwing our hands up, my satin dress spinning out like hope. Then I saw Dale's truck in the parking lot through the gym doors. 9:47 p.m. He wasn't supposed to pick me up until 11. "Family emergency," he told the chaperone. "Mrs. Henderson, who knew our situation." That word again, situation. "Her mother needs her." The drive home was silent except for AM radio playing old country songs. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I could smell beer, not drunk. Dale never got drunk, just loose enough for truth to slip through. In the kitchen, he threw the acceptance letter on the table. Full scholarship to Case Western Reserve University, pre-med program, Cleveland 2 hours away. I'd hidden it in my locker, but he'd gone to school, convinced them he'd lost his key. "You think you're smart." His voice stayed level, which was worse than yelling. "Think you can sneak around, make plans without us knowing? It's just college." The slap came fast, snapping my head sideways, my corsage crushed against the wall. The taste of copper filled my mouth where my teeth cut the inside of my cheek. Dale. Mom stood in the doorway, bathrobe pulled tight, face pale as paper. She needs to learn respect. Elaine. You want her ending up like her father, thinking she's too good for the life she's got. He grabbed my shoulders, shaking hard enough that my vision blurred. My hand found Tess's phone in the clutch. Muscle memory from practicing thumb double tap. Speed dial 2. The phone connected just as he shoved me into the refrigerator, magnets scattered across linoleum. Mom's grocery list. My junior year honor roll certificate. A photo from last Christmas, all of it falling like snow. "You ungrateful." He pulled back his fist. Somewhere in Tess's bedroom, her phone was playing the sound of violence. She told me later she heard the crash, heard him swearing, heard my sharp intake of breath. 7 seconds. That's how long it took her to call 911 and scream our address. Domestic violence in progress. 47 Maple Street. He's hitting her. Send someone now. Dale didn't hear the sirens until they were on our street. Red and blue lights exploded through the kitchen window, painting everything in emergency colors. My satin dress caught the light like water, like drowning, like salvation. 2 officers. The younger one separated us immediately, taking me to the porch while his partner stayed with Dale. I remember the cool air on my swelling cheek, the neighbor's porch lights flicking on like dominoes down the street. "You want to press charges?" Officer Brennan asked, her voice gentle but firm. She'd seen this before. Behind us, Dale was explaining it was a misunderstanding, a family discussion that got emotional, teenage rebellion meeting parental concern, his contractor's charm working even with handcuffs on. "Yes," I said, louder than I'd spoken in months. "Yes, I want to press charges," Mom cried. Dale's lawyer arrived within an hour golf buddy from the country club. By morning, it was reduced to a misdemeanor, temporary restraining order, anger management classes, community service he'd probably do through his church. But the paper trail started that night. Case number 2014-0547, the beginning of evidence. The first documentation that would matter 10 years later. Tess's mom picked me up from the police station at 3:22 a.m., my prom dress still catching dashboard light. I stayed at their house for 3 days, until Dale convinced Mom I was being dramatic, poisoning our family's reputation. I went home, graduated 6 weeks later. Left for Cleveland in August with one suitcase and Tess's phone number written on my wrist in permanent marker. The last thing Dale said to me, "This world's smaller than you think. Maya, we'll always be family." Cleveland swallowed me whole, and I was grateful for the anonymity. Case Western's dormitory became my first real home, a single room after my roommate transferred. 8 by 10 feet of space that belonged only to me. No open-door policies. No one monitoring my breathing patterns through thin walls. I dropped pre-med after 1 semester. Every time I looked at anatomical diagrams, I saw bruise patterns instead of muscle groups. The scholarship covered 4 years. I switched to emergency medical services. Shorter program, faster employment, same urge to fix things that were broken. The EMT certification came with 2 job offers. I took both. Days at Horizon Medical Columbus Division far enough from Cleveland that no one knew my story. Close enough that I didn't feel completely untethered. Nights at Riverlight Cafe, pulling espresso shots until 4 a.m., the coffee grounds under my fingernails replacing my father's engine grease. Sleep became optional. 3 hours between shifts, catnaps in the ambulance bay, micro-sleeps standing up against the coffee machine. Better than the alternative lying in bed at 3:12 a.m., checking door locks, counting footsteps that weren't there. Every siren was a flashback. Not to that night, exactly, but to the feeling of it. The paralysis before action. The weight of another person's anger reshaping your skeleton. I learned to breathe through it, to let the sound wash over me like baptism instead of drowning. My partners at Horizon thought I was unshakable. "Steady, Maya," they called me, not knowing I was steady because I'd already survived my worst emergency. Mom called every Sunday at 6 p.m. The conversations followed a script: weather, her garden, church news. Never Dale directly, but he lived in the pronouns. "We're thinking of remodeling the bathroom. We went to the Johnsons' anniversary party. We're praying for you. I'm fine, Mom. You could visit. He's different now. The counseling really helped." The counseling, 6 sessions of court-mandated anger management that he'd turned into a testimony at First Methodist. I'd looked up the police report once, from a library computer. My statement had been reduced to 2 sentences. The photographs of my bruises were missing. The case file marked, resolved. Year 3. I met Jonas Pike. He worked ER at Horizon night shifts that overlapped with my ambulance runs. Quiet, competent, with hands that could start an IV in a moving vehicle without flinching. He asked me for coffee. I said yes because it was daytime and public, and he had tired eyes that couldn't hide anything. "You check exits?" he said on our 4th date. Not a question. "And you sit facing doors. Occupational hazard." "No," he said gently. "It's not." I didn't tell him the whole story, just enough. He didn't push, didn't try to fix me, didn't suggest I needed fixing. He just started sitting beside me instead of across from me in restaurants, so we could both watch the door. We moved in together year 5. A 2nd-floor apartment with 2 deadbolts and a security system he installed without asking. He never questioned why I needed to sleep closest to the door or why I kept a bag packed in the closet. When Mom called about Thanksgiving, he held my hand while I said no. "We worry about you," Mom whispered. "Dale probably standing right there. All alone. I'm not alone. You know what I mean." I knew. Without them, without Dale's protection and control, I was supposedly adrift, a girl without proper family. Mom had internalized his worldview so completely that my independence looked like abandonment to her. Year 7. Tess got married. Small ceremony in Columbus. I was maid of honor, and during my speech, I mentioned the night she saved my life with 7 seconds of courage. Most people thought it was metaphorical. Dale and Mom weren't invited, but I spent the reception checking over my shoulder anyway. He's gotten worse, Tess told me at the bar, champagne making her honest. My mom still lives in Maple Ridge. Says he's got 2 more restraining orders now. Different girls, daughters of women he dates after they leave. The pattern emerged like a diagnosis. Find struggling single mothers, play savior, isolate, control, escalate. The legal system catching and releasing him like a fish too small to keep. Year 8. I finally stopped checking his Facebook page every night before bed. Stopped Googling Dale Mercer Arrest Ohio. Stopped driving past exits for Maple Ridge with my breath held. Year 9. I thought I was free. Year 10. I learned freedom and unfinished business weren't the same thing. Jonas proposed on New Year's Eve, 11:59 p.m., saying he wanted to start the year with a yes. I said yes, but couldn't explain why I was crying. How do you tell someone you love that you're still partially owned by someone you hate? That a piece of your fear belongs to a man who marked you before you knew how to resist marking? The call came in at 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday. Charity gala at the Columbus Marriott. Teenage girl collapsed in the bathroom. Possible alcohol poisoning. Possible drugs, the dispatcher said. Routine until it wasn't. She was 16, wearing a burgundy dress that had torn at the shoulder. Blonde hair matted with sweat. Mascara streaking down cheeks too young for that much makeup. When I checked her arms for track marks, I found finger bruises instead. 5 perfect ovals on her upper arm, fresh enough they hadn't purpled yet. "What's your name, sweetheart?" I kept my voice level while my partner, Rodriguez, checked her vitals. Ashley Mercer. The name hit like ice water in my veins. Rodriguez didn't notice my freeze, too busy calling in stats. But Ashley's eyes, green, watchful even through the haze, tracked my face. "My stepdad's going to kill me," she whispered, then flinched at her own words. "I mean, he'll be upset. This was his event, Mercer and Sons' annual fundraiser." I looked around the bathroom. The gala poster on the door showed Dale's face, 10 years older, but that same practiced smile. Building better communities together. His company had expanded from Maple Ridge to Columbus, apparently. Legitimate businessman now. Philanthropist. Pillar of the community. "Did someone hurt you?" "Ashley." I touched the bruises gently. I fell, dancing. These heels are stupid high. The lie came automatic, rehearsed. I recognized the cadence I'd used it myself. At the hospital. Ashley's mother arrived first. Thin, nervous, designer dress that didn't fit quite right. She had that look the one Mom had developed, like she was constantly calculating the emotional weather, ready to adjust her temperature accordingly. "Where is he?" Ashley asked from the bed. "Parking. You know how he is about finding the right spot." Her mother's laugh was brittle. "He's concerned." Concerned. I documented the bruises in Ashley's chart, photographed them per protocol. When Dale walked in 20 minutes later, I was adjusting Ashley's IV. He didn't recognize me at first. I'd changed gained muscle from lifting patients, cut my hair short, carried myself like someone who knew where the exits were. But when our eyes met, I saw the click of recognition, followed immediately by calculation. "Maya." He said it warm, like we were old friends. "My God, little Maya Caldwell. Elaine said you were in medicine." He'd kept tabs. Of course he had. "It's Caldwell still," I said, keeping my hand steady on the IV port. "And it's EMT Caldwell during my shift." "Professional. Good for you." He moved to Ashley's other side, taking her unbruised hand. "Thanks for taking care of my girl here." His girl. The possession in those words made my skin crawl. Ashley shrank into the bed, making herself smaller. The monitoring equipment showed her heart rate spike. "She'll be fine," I said, looking directly at Ashley. "Everything's documented. The doctor will be in soon." Dale heard the threat underneath. His jaw tightened. That tell he'd never learned to control. I left the room but stayed within earshot. Heard him telling Ashley about embarrassment, family reputation, being more careful, heard her mother's murmured agreement, heard the familiar pattern playing out like a recording. That night, I pulled every record I could access. Ashley Mercer. 2 previous ER visits in 18 months. Sports injuries, officially. Softball, volleyball. Always clumsy Ashley. The documentation was thin, but present. A timeline building. I found the newspaper articles next. Dale Mercer, construction mogul, charity donor, school board advisor, photos at ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, scholarship ceremonies, 3 marriages, 2 divorces, current wife Rebecca, always single mothers with teenage daughters, always the savior narrative. What are you looking at? Jonas found me at 3 a.m. Laptop hot on my thighs, 17 tabs open. A pattern, I said. A fucking pattern that no one's stopping. I showed him everything. Dale's history, the restraining orders Tess had mentioned, Ashley's bruises, the other ER visits I'd found through careful searching, 2 more girls, different last names, same injury patterns, same age range, same sports injury cover stories. You can't get involved, Jonas said, but his voice lacked conviction. It's not your fight anymore. It was never just my fight. I pulled up a photo from the charity gala, Dale shaking hands with the mayor, Ashley standing beside him in that burgundy dress. Smile practiced and empty. He's doing it again, has been doing it, will keep doing it. The fire I thought I'd extinguished was back, but different. Not fear fire, but purpose fire. Not about what he'd done to me 10 years ago, but about what he was doing now, would do tomorrow, would keep doing until someone stopped him. I need to make some calls, I said, pulling out my phone. Maya, I'm not going to do anything illegal, or unethical, or even improper. I scrolled to Tessa's number. I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to do it right. The first meeting happened in Tessa's apartment on a Sunday. Coffee and evidence spread across her dining table like battle plans. I'd called it a safety discussion, but everyone knew what we were really planning. We need this to be airtight, said Amelia West, the lawyer from Shelterline, Ohio. She'd come recommended through 3 degrees of separation, someone who knew someone who knew someone who'd escaped. Ohio's one-party consent law means you can record him without his knowledge. But we need more than words. We need threats, admissions, something that demonstrates a clear pattern. What about the old restraining order? Tess asked, pulling up the case file she'd somehow accessed through her PR connections. It's been 10 years, but violations don't expire. If he contacts Maya directly, threatens her, or comes within the specified distance, yes, that's prosecutable. Amelia highlighted sections of legal code. But we need him to do it provably. On record. Kara Whitfield, sitting in uniform even though it was her day off, leaned forward. I can't officially be involved unless there's an active crime, but I can be strategically positioned if something were to happen at a public event. The Second Chance Prom Gala, Tess said, pulling up the invitation on her tablet. 3 weeks away. Mercer & Sons is platinum sponsor. Dale never misses a photo op. The theme felt like poetic justice, a prom to fix what Prom had broken. We need him isolated but not illegally detained, Amelia continued. Somewhere private enough for him to feel safe showing his true nature, but public enough that we're within our rights to be there. The donor's lounge, Jonas suggested. He'd been quiet until now, but I could see him working through logistics like patient symptoms. Every gala has one. Soundproofed for high-dollar negotiations, but still technically part of the event space. I pulled out my phone, opening the anonymous email account I'd created. We need bait he can't resist, something that triggers his specific pathology. Control, Kara said immediately. These guys are all about control. Challenge that, and they crack. The email took 2 hours to draft. Every word calculated, Mr. Mercer. I'm a grateful parent whose daughter attended one of your scholarship events. She's been acting out lately, reminds me of a girl you helped years ago in Maple Ridge. Someone mentioned you had experience with difficult teenagers. Could we speak privately at the gala? I could use advice from someone who understands how hard it is when girls don't appreciate structure. Signed, a concerned parent. It's perfect, Amelia said. Vague enough to be legal, specific enough to hook him. The technical setup came next. Tess sourced professional recording equipment through her media contacts, tiny microphones that looked like vintage pins, cameras that appeared to be boutonnieres. Everything legal, everything admissible. I'll position myself at the DJ booth, Tess said, sketching the Lakefall Pavilion's layout from memory. Direct sightline to the donor's lounge entrance. Jonas covers the emergency exit. Kara stays in the main ballroom with two uniformed officers who just happened to be working security that night. What about Ashley? I asked. She needs to be nowhere near this. Already handled, Amelia said. I reached out to her mother through Shelterline, offered free counseling services. They'll be in Dayton that weekend, at a women's wellness retreat. Rebecca doesn't know it's actually a domestic violence support group, but she'll learn. The plan had redundancies built in. If Dale didn't take the bait, we'd try again at the next event. If he spotted the setup, everyone was just attending a charity function. If he got violent, Kara and backup were 30 seconds away. We need a signal, Jonas said. Something that indicates Maya needs extraction versus everything going to plan. When, I said, the word coming immediate and certain. If I say the word when in any context, that's the green light. That means I have what we need. Tess created fake social media profiles for our concerned parent, building a believable backstory. A widowed father, teenage daughter, construction company that would make him attractive to Dale's business network. Digital breadcrumbs for Dale to follow and verify. He'll check, I warned. He always does his homework. Let him. Tess smiled, showing weeks of fabricated posts, borrowed photos from stock sites, even fake comments from other fake profiles. I've built entire PR campaigns with less. Amelia drew up contingency documentation, restraining order renewals ready to file, civil suit paperwork if criminal charges didn't stick, Child Protective Services alerts for Ashley and any other minors in Dale's orbit. This isn't just about revenge, Amelia said, looking at me directly. This is about pattern interruption. Men like Dale escalate until someone makes them stop. What if he doesn't say anything incriminating? Jonas asked. What if he stays charming? He won't, I said, remembering the grip on my wrist, the sound of magnets hitting linoleum. The mask always slips when they think they're safe, when they think they're talking to another predator, when they think they've won. The band was playing the same song from my actual prom night that year's breakup ballad that everyone slow danced to anyway. The coincidence felt like the universe confirming what was about to happen. Dale stood near the donor's lounge entrance, checking his watch. He'd responded to my final email an hour ago. Let's talk privately. Find me by the auction tables. I approached slowly, letting him see me coming. His recognition was immediate this time, eyes narrowing before his politician's smile clicked into place. Maya, didn't expect to see you here. It's for a good cause. I touched the vintage pin microphone at my collar, adjusting it like nervous fidgeting. Supporting education. You taught me about the importance of that. His chest puffed slightly. He always did love when people acknowledged his influence. Your mother says you're doing well. EMT work. She still tells you about me. We stay in touch. Family is family, even when it's complicated. Family. I swallowed the bile and gestured toward the donor's lounge. Actually, I was hoping we could talk. Privately. I have something to share that might interest you, about troubled teenagers. Professional perspective. The bait was modified, but still effective. His eyes lit with that particular gleam, the possibility of new supply, new control, new validation of his methods. Of course, always happy to help. The donor's lounge was perfectly staged. Soundproofed walls meant for million-dollar pledges. Security camera in the corner that Tess had verified was recording. 2 leather chairs angled toward each other. A small table between them with champagne neither of us would drink. You look good. Maya, he said, sitting down, spreading his legs wide to take up space. Grown up, professional. I always knew you'd make something of yourself once you got past that rebellious phase. That rebellious phase, I repeated, keeping my voice neutral. You mean when I wanted to go to college? You were going to abandon your mother, leave her alone, after everything she'd been through. His voice took on that familiar edge, righteous indignation barely covering rage. Someone had to teach you responsibility. The way you're teaching Ashley. His face went still. I don't know what you think you saw at that hospital. I saw bruises, documented them, actually, just like mine were documented 10 years ago. You always were dramatic, making mountains out of molehills. A little discipline never hurt anyone. He leaned forward, and I could smell the same cologne, see the same vein pulsing in his temple. Girls need structure, boundaries. Your generation thinks you can just do whatever you want, no consequences. Is that what you tell Rebecca? When you grab Ashley hard enough to leave marks? You have no idea what that girl is like. Sneaking out, talking back, thinking she's grown. Just like you were. His hands clenched on his knees. Someone has to keep these girls in line before they end up what? Dale, whores. He spit out. Damaged, used up. At least with my guidance. They have a chance at respectability. I kept my face calm while inside I was screaming. The microphone was capturing everything. His admission, his justification, his pathology laid bare. Must be exhausting, I said. Controlling all these women. It's a responsibility I don't take lightly. He actually looked proud. Your mother, Rebecca, the girls, they need someone strong, someone who won't let them destroy themselves with their own worst impulses. And if they resist, he stood up suddenly, and I fought not to flinch, but he was just pacing, working himself up to something. You want to know the truth, Maya. What I should have told you years ago. He turned, backlit by the chandelier. Your father was weak. Let you and your mother run wild. If he'd been stronger, maybe he'd have been paying attention that night instead of driving into that semi. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. But I stayed seated, fingers steady on my clutch. Is that what you told Mom to make her grateful for your control? I told her the truth, that she was lucky I came along, that you both would have ended up trash without me. He moved closer, looming. And you know what I was right. Look at you, almost 30, unmarried, no kids, wasting your potential playing ambulance driver. Actually, I'm engaged, and happy, and free. The word free triggered something. His face darkened, that familiar storm building. Free, he laughed, ugly and sharp. You think you're free? You think you can just walk away from what I made you? I shaped you. Maya, every success you have is because I taught you consequences. You taught me fear. Same thing, if it works. He was close enough now that I could see my reflection in his pupils. And it did work, didn't it? 10 years and you never came back. Never tried to turn your mother against me. Because you know what I'm capable of. What are you capable of? Dale, you really want to test me here now. His hand moved to his pocket, and for a moment I thought he had a weapon, but it was just his phone. One call to your mother. Tell her you're harassing me, stalking me at events. She'll believe me. She always does. Like Rebecca believes you about Ashley's bruises. You mention that brat again. He caught himself, remembering where we were, but the mask had slipped completely now. You need to be very careful, Maya. You have no idea how connected I am now. Construction, city council, police department. You come after me or mine, and I'll end your little medical career before you can blink. When did you get so powerful? I asked, voice innocent. He smiled then, that predator's grin I remembered from childhood. When I realized girls like you only understand one thing, consequences, and I got very good at delivering them. He leaned down, close enough I could feel his breath. So, whatever you're thinking about doing, remember, I know where you work. I know where you live, and this world is much smaller than you think." The threat hung between us, clear and recorded. I stood up slowly, smoothing my dress, and said the word that would end him. "When you're right, you're right." Through the soundproofed walls, I couldn't hear the movement, but I knew Tess was sending the live stream to selected phones. Jonas was opening the emergency exit. Kara and 2 officers were walking toward the donor's lounge. Dale was still smiling when the door opened. "Dale Mercer." Kara's voice was professionally neutral. "We need you to come with us." His face cycled through confusion, rage, then back to politician's charm. "Officers, there must be some misunderstanding. I'm a donor here, a sponsor. You're under arrest for criminal threatening, violation of a restraining order from May 2014, and intimidation of a witness." Kara pulled out the handcuffs with practiced efficiency. "You have the right to remain silent." "This is entrapment." Dale's voice cracked, charm evaporating. "She set me up, Maya. You vindictive little. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The handcuffs clicked shut with the exact same sound they'd made 10 years ago. That metallic snap of finality, of consequences finally arriving. But this time, I wasn't watching from a porch through tears. This time, I stood straight-backed and steady, meeting his rage with calm. "You recorded me," he hissed as Kara guided him toward the door. "Without my knowledge. One-party consent state." Amelia West appeared in the doorway, having waited for this exact moment. "Everything Maya did was legal, unlike your threats, your violations, and what we're about to uncover when Ashley Mercer's medical records get subpoenaed." The crowd had gathered outside the donor's lounge, phones raised, recording Dale Mercer, pillar of the community, generous donor, construction magnate being led out in handcuffs. The live stream Tess had sent to select parents was spreading through the ballroom like wildfire. Whispers became murmurs, became a roar of recognition. "Is that him from the Maple Ridge case? My daughter said there were rumors. 3 restraining orders. I heard." Dale tried to pull away from Kara's grip, turning back to me one last time. "Your mother will never forgive you for this." "No," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She'll never forgive you." They led him through the ballroom, past the silver balloons and string lights that threw shadows like prison bars across his face. The band had stopped playing, everyone watching as red and blue lights painted the windows, not from fire trucks but from the additional units Kara had called. Someone had tipped off a news van too, probably Tess, and cameras were waiting outside. I stood in the donor's lounge doorway, watching him disappear into custody. My hands weren't shaking. My breath came steady and even, the way it did when I worked a trauma scene. Because that's what this had been: emergency medicine applied to an old wound that never properly healed. Jonas appeared at my elbow, solid and warm. "You okay?" "Yes," and I meant it. For the first time in 10 years, I actually meant it. Tess rushed over, phone in hand. The prosecutor already called. "With the recording, the threats, the violation of the old restraining order, he's looking at actual time. And 3 more girls have come forward just in the last 20 minutes. The dominoes were falling exactly as Amelia had predicted. One act of courage creating space for others. Ashley would be safe. Rebecca would get help. Mom would finally have to see Dale without his mask." I walked back through the ballroom, past the auction tables where Dale had held court an hour ago, past the dance floor where couples were slowly starting to sway again as the band resumed playing. The disco ball still spun overhead, throwing fractured light that looked less like broken glass now and more like stars, countless points of light in the darkness. At the entrance, I stopped and looked back at the Second Chance Prom banner stretched across the stage. Some second chances were about fixing what was broken. Others were about breaking what needed to be destroyed. I pulled the microphone pin from my dress, held it up to the light. Such a small thing to carry such weight. Evidence, truth. The voice I didn't have at 18 but found at 28. Outside, the news van was pulling away with footage that would make tomorrow's morning shows. Mercer and Sons would lose their contracts by the end of the week. the scholarship fund would be reorganized under new leadership. Ashley would start therapy with someone who specialized in trauma recovery. And somewhere in Maple Ridge, my mother was about to get a phone call that would shatter her careful construction of normal. But sometimes things needed to shatter before they could be rebuilt properly. I handed the recording device to Amelia, who sealed it in an evidence bag with the satisfied smile of someone who'd just won a very long game of chess. "What now?" Jonas asked, taking my hand. "Now we go home," I said. "I have an early shift tomorrow. Real emergencies to handle." We walked to the parking lot, passing under the same lights that had illuminated my prom night disaster 10 years ago. But this time, the lights weren't sirens coming to save me. They were just lights. And I was already saved, had been saving myself. One day at a time, for a decade. The door closed on Dale Mercer exactly the way handcuffs close, with a definitive click that says some endings aren't negotiable. I breathed in the night air that tasted like justice served at exactly the right temperature. Not revenge. Consequences. The difference mattered. The lights swept across the parking lot one more time as we drove away, and I didn't look back. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let me know your thoughts on Maya's journey. Your perspective matters, and I read every single comment.